the audience in front of me already knows half the things that I want to talk about. I mean, I recognize almost more than half the people in the room. So basically, when we talk about hate speech or communal violence, we are really talking about Hindu-Muslim issues broadly. I mean, of course, there are attacks on the Christian community also, but that's not center stage. So I just wanted to, I'm not sure if this is going to help us to fight this in the future, but maybe just understanding some of the parameters might help us to find the direction. So one thing is that communal forces have always imagined, communal forces, the Hindu fundamentalist forces especially, have always imagined Muslims as their natural enemy, who have, and this battle between Hindus and Muslims has gone on for thousands of years. Even though people don't bother with the history, so they don't bother to realize that Prophet Muhammad was born in the end of the 6th century, so we're talking about Islam only in the 7th century, where the earliest contact with Muslims was through trade and not through the sword. And maybe the first so-called attack from outside by Muhammad bin Qasim is in 9th century, 8th century. Sorry. So we're talking about, and yet they present this whole business of Hindus versus Muslims as if it is completely ancient. It's been going on for thousands of years.
I mean, could you just speak into them?
Yeah. You can't hear at the back at all? Okay. This way.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, this order.
All right. So, while the battles that took place even after, say, Mughal rule or even before, since the time that some Muslim rulers existed, were never battles of between religions, but battles of territory, and there were Hindus and Muslims on both sides of these battles. Whether you look at Smabhaji or you look at any battle, you'll have, and many times when they talk about Muslim ruler who conquered India, they conquered from other Muslim rulers who were already there. So this is one source of mythology. Let us come to 1857, where Hindus and Muslims united against the British. And there's a footnote that has been, there are many footnotes that have been forgotten by history, but one is that in 1857 the British had erected a dividing wall in the Babri Masjid, and and both Hindus and Muslims at that time had united to do common prayers in the same compound. And the Hindu side was led by Baba Ramcharan Das, the Muslim side by Achan Khan, and who was a landlord in Ayodhya, and communal harmony was maintained. A pact was reached by which both communities could pray side by side in separate portions of the same Babri compound. The British, who finally crushed the revolt of 1857, hanged Baba Ramcharan Das and Achan Khan on charges of sedition, because they were part of the united movement against the British. The pact of communal harmony the two had forged in Ayodhya had lasted almost 100 years. It was broken only by an act of vandalism in 1949. 70 years later, the Supreme Court rewarded the vandals. We come to the freedom movement. The freedom movement against the British was overwhelmingly fought by secular Indians, Hindus, Muslims, and all other communities. That is not to say there was no communal poison around. Bhagat Singh wrote in 1927 that the best way to fight communalism was through class solidarity. And he cited that during the riots in Calcutta, workers had united across religious lines to douse the fire. The, the majority of the working class Muslims of India were against partition, but the British denied them a voice and listened only to the elite Muslims who wanted partition because they were afraid that Congress socialists would grab their properties. Likewise, property upper caste Hindus were afraid not only of socialism but of Gandhi's fight against untouchability. Partition took the lives of 1 million people and displaced many more. Murder of Mahatma Gandhi, where after Gandhi was murdered, uh, actually the right-wing Hindutva forces suffered a setback because they imagined that killing Gandhi would be a very popular thing. But it backfired, and Gandhi's murder stunned the country into almost 20 years of communal harmony. So it took a long time before these forces could raise their head again. RSS was banned for 1 year until they promised that they would not do politics anymore, but be a cultural organization. And they force what that we've seen what their cultural work has been. In 1974, Jayaprakash Narayan brought back, I have to plead guilty on this count because I was part of the movement, but Jayaprakash Narayan gave legitimacy to the RSS and said that they are also patriots. And that because he imagined that he could convert them from this communal path. So that's when they first got their legitimacy back. The 1990 saw the first attack on the Babri Masjid, which I had filmed. I had interviewed people in and around Ayodhya and found no trace of animosity from local people. The elections of last month reassures me that this has not changed, despite the WhatsApp universities, cell phones, and saffronized mass media, and all the other things that the right-wing forces have controlled. But in Ayodhya, a Smabhaji Party person won the election, and he happens to be a Dalit. So it's a very ironic moment in our time, something we can really celebrate. As the other thing that we should keep track of is the global perspective, the global forces that are at play. Because as the Cold War ended and the Soviet Union dissolved, new partnerships emerged. The USA and Israel are part of the global demonizing of Muslims. So it's in sync with what we are doing in India. Israel has become our favorite arms dealer, and all our intelligence, military, and police are trained there. So there's a common globalized anti-Muslim vocabulary. The points that we hear again and again in the hate speech that goes on: A, all Muslims are terrorists. Now, if you examine that closely, you will find that many of these so-called Muslim terrorists were created by United States to fight for their geopolitical reasons. Whether you look at bringing Bin Laden into Afghanistan, I mean, first, what happened in Pakistan during Zia's time, and then the arming of Islamic militants in Pakistan and Afghanistan, or the creation of ISIS, and you see that there's a foreign hand here that people don't normally talk about or think about. If you want to see what I'm talking about, I mean, they all talk about how Afghanistan is oppressing its women, and that's actually true. But then if you look at footage, archival footage of Afghanistan before the intervention by America, you see women riding bicycles, you see people without veils singing songs, participating in cultural organizations, because at that moment there was some Soviet influence in Afghanistan and it was a different world. So America can hardly claim that they liberated the Muslim women of Afghanistan. They actually put them into Parda again. Then the other myth is that Muslims breed like rabbits. Now I don't have to explain to you how they do that. हम दो हमारे दो और वो चार उनके 25. That is the common refrain that we hear, that Muslim population is going to outgrow, and that if anybody carries these statistics, you know that is statistically completely false. That there has been no percentage increase in the Muslim population comparatively. And also the obvious, the often repeated myth of Muslims demolished our temples and raped our women. All of these things are easy to challenge, but we need to have our facts before us. Aurangzeb, who's accused of doing all these demolitions, actually built a lot of Hindu temples also. In Ayodhya also, many of the temples were built by Muslim rulers. At the time when the Manas was being written in Ayodhya, was Tulsidas was sitting, the upper caste there didn't want him to translate the Ramayana into Khadi Boli, and they oppressed him. And in fact, he got shelter in mosques. So he sat and wrote this. By the way, he never says anywhere in the Manas that Babur has demolished the Ram temple that I'm talking about. Ram's own birthplace ka temple. And this is, he's writing at the same time as Babur is supposed to have done this demolition. So what is new today, I think you'll hear from Kunal and others, what is new is the cell phone is new, the kind of communications networks that exist today are new. In my time, we had Doordarshan, and I had a hard time getting my film on Doordarshan. We had to go to court. Every time we had to go to court. We won 7 court cases to get our film shown on Doordarshan, just to make sure that it gets properly seen by people. Today you have all kinds of channels, thousands of channels, but they are repeating the same things. If you just sit at home and flip your channel, you will find almost the same content everywhere. You find the same religious serials all the time. So there is a big time intervention by the corporate world that has completely poisoned our minds. Poisoned our minds, actually made us stupid. I would not even say it's hatred necessarily that's being pushed. It is a kind of complete stupidity. In the 21st century, you're not promoting scientific thought. You're promoting complete mythology and passing it off as religion. I think I'll stop here.
Hi, I'm Taira. I'm a journalist with the Free Press Journal newspaper. I have a question for Anandji. Sir, how do you look at the mandate that the people of this country has given to BJP? What is the message that the country is trying to give to the party? I want to know from you, sir.
So the biggest message came from Uttar Pradesh. That was a state that none of us who were fighting for secular values imagined that it would be flipped, because this was the place which was giving almost 100% seats to BJP. They have done it in the 2 elections, and when we were calculating what is the possibilities, when I imagined that there's a possibility that Uttar Pradesh will vote overwhelmingly against BJP, and that in Ayodhya BJP will lose and a Dalit candidate from Smabhaji party would win. So I think that is a message. But I take Kunal's point that this message should not lull us into thinking that the battle is over and that we are on the safe path right now. Because as he talks about Hindutva pop in the cow belt, we have seen what in this very room Sanatan Sanstha had a meeting. When was it? I think it was 2000 and probably 2015 or something like that. After they had killed Daborkar and Pansare and Kalburgi, we had protested against Kalburgi's murder, and then there was a press conference right here where they completely openly stated that anybody who speaks out, they will face Hindutva terror. They admitted the lawyer for Sanatan Sanstha sitting here, his name was Punalekar. He openly said that yes, Hindutva terrorism exists, and he proudly said that. And by the way, just recently he was let out, acquitted. One Taude, who is the guy who, there is a video of him going, that a person, an eyewitness spoke about how he was asked to make the gun. All these people were killed with homemade pistols. This guy had given the order to make the gun. He testified, and then Taude has been released for lack of evidence. And the court is taking credit that they have really said that there was not enough. The police did a bad job. The state did a bad job of information gathering, and that's why the case was weak. But the point is that Hindutva has been in power even before they actually came to power, because they already infiltrated all these institutions, and so the investigation is shoddy, and the court is taking credit for having said that. But they effectively released the masterminds. They only kept in jail the shooter. And this is the story. Smabhaji will also tell you. Everybody knows to what grassroots extent these organizations, Hindu Jan Jagrat Samiti, Sanatan Sanstha, so many of them, different names they have. But they have infiltrated all these states, especially Maharashtra, Karnataka, Goa, and they are doing everyday work. They are doing everyday work which, as you said, is invisible. We don't see it every day because it's not some big thing that happens. Just recently, they even got a book published saying that after all there is no evidence in these cases, why is the state pursuing these cases against the killers of these rationalists?